Continuing with the picnic table that we created, if you look at your top layer, which is icon art, you're going to see that our picnic table is made up of 6 different segments. We are going to end up grouping those. So with the icon art layer selected, go to select all, and it's going to pick up all of those. We are going to go to object, group, so that all of these are grouped together in one unit. Next, we're going to go down. We don't need to have that template anymore, so just highlight that layer and click the little trash can to delete it. We're cleaning up our artwork and getting a little more organized this way. So now that we have this item selected, you know, that's nice, but it's not the entire icon. We're going to unlock the background layer, and by holding down our Shift key, we're going to pick up that other piece, that's rectangle, and go again to Object and Group. This moves the entire object up onto that front layer. You can verify that by looking at the background and counting that we only have 7 rectangles left on that background layer. And you can see that it is part of our group. We have the group that we did that is simply the picnic table, and then we have made a parent group with the rectangle behind it, and we are going to rename this group picnic table so that we can find it very easily. Now that we have that group in one section, we're going to lock that group. That way we can't pick it up by accident while we're working on the rest of our icons. I'm going to go ahead and lock that background layer down again, just because it makes life a little bit simpler. And now we're going to scroll over and work next on our hiker. To create the hiker, we are going to use the line segment tool. So if you want to grab that and make sure that you are on your icon art layer to make that active, the line tool should come up with a default stroke length of 1 point. We're going to leave it at that. Whatever the stroke is and the fill, we don't want to have a fill, so just make your fill none and your stroke black. If you need to, you can pick a black stroke out of your palette and apply that. And now click by the neck and drag diagonally down to the bottom of his foot. Okay, you like the line? Looks good? We're going to take that line next, and we're going to make it a 12-point wide line, which is about the right width. However, notice that the line's a little on the long side, so we're going to make some changes. If you look at your stroke dialog box, and we can just pull up the stroke panel right here, you can see that we have a flat cap. If you check the round cap, we now have the right round on it, but it's going to extend past the length of what the leg and body should be. We're going to fix that next. We still should have our transform panel up. Make sure that your constraints are clicked off, although it shouldn't make a difference for this particular exercise. But we're going to change our line length to 1 inch. So just put in 1 and hit enter. That's going to shorten up that line segment to the correct height. If you look at the box in your book, on page 62, there's going to be an in-depth look at the stroke panel. It will discuss dotted lines, it will discuss arrowheads, joints, and stroke alignments. It's also going to show you about the non-end cap style, round end, and square end caps. When you have a rounded or squared end that will extend as a projecting cap, the amount of projection is going to be half the width. So we had a 6-point projection going past the end. Right now that works just fine. So accept that by holding down your control key and clicking to the side to deselect the line. Remember, we're working with our smart guides, so we're going to create another path keeping that same properties of the line we just changed, and find the anchor point by just hovering over the line that you did until you see the word anchor. When you do, click and drag a fresh line down and you're going to make that line end just above the foot so that you can release it. If we need to make changes to it, we can. If it's not long enough, you can change and set this to a 1-inch line and make sure that you keep the position over the top of the body. We can go to View, Outline, and take a look and see whether our paths are still lined up. And it's not. I'm going to nudge mine down just a hair. There we go. Now mine is pretty much lined up right where it should be. And let me go back to View and my GPU view. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is we're going to create the figure's top arm segment. Now we're going to go back to that same point again, so let me pick up my line segment tool. I seem to have dropped that somewhere, and there's an anchor point. And we're going to click and drag again and create the top arm segment. Now the problem with this is that we have carried over that same 12-point stroke that we had before. So we're going to take this down to an 8-point, which is a better fit. Again, deselect by holding your Control key, and now pick up from that same anchor point and drag out to create the lower part of the arm. Again, using the line segment tool, you're going to click off to the side, click and drag to create the stick, and this time we're going to have to change the line down to a 4-point stroke to make it look correct. You can right now do a quick Control S to save before moving on to the next segment. Illustrator recognizes a number of basic shapes as live shapes. In addition to using the Transform panel to edit properties of live shapes, you can use the cursor to edit those shapes without the need to constantly switch tools. So now we're going to create and edit 2 more live shapes to complete our hiking icon artwork. Deselect everything that's on the board. So if you still have your line tool, use your Control and click when you click to the side. But now go pick up the rectangle tool. Make sure that you have a 1-point stroke and no fill, and we're going to click and drag and create a rectangle that's approximately the same size as the backpack. Kinda, sorta. Close enough. Click the object's center point and drag to move the shape until its center matches about the center of that backpack. Now we still are using the rectangle tool to do this. Move the cursor near the corner of the shape and you'll see a rotation cursor. The little double-headed arrow, can you see that? And now you're going to rotate that object so that it lines up pretty close to the angle of the back and the size of that object that we're trying to draw. You can even adjust, change the size by clicking and dragging if you need to make it a little wider or a little bit narrower depending on what you've drawn. Again, you can pick up the centerpiece and move it if you need to. Click and drag any of the bounding box handles until the height and shape match. Now you can, we have to turn our corner widgets back on again. We hid those earlier, so let's go to View and Show Corner Widgets, and now we can go back in and round the edges of the corners and make that fit a little bit better. When you're happy with the drawing that you did, go over to your tool panel and swap the Fill and Stroke button. And you now have a black fill and no stroke on the backpack. Use your Control key and click off to deselect the artwork. Next, you're going to choose the Ellipse tool. By using your Alt or Option key, you're going to click in the center of the head, or as close as you can judge to be the center. Hold down your Alt key, then click and drag out to create a lovely circle that is going to be approximately the same size as the head. Use your smart guides, and you can also hold down your shift key, which will also give you a perfectly round circle, and make that match pretty close. Remember, you can go back in now and grab the center and move your head around a little bit if you need to. You can even move it by using the arrow keys on your keyboard. Adjust the size and the position until you're satisfied with the results. Somehow I lost my 4-point stroke on my walking stick, so let me put that back. Make sure you read Transforming Objects with the Bounding Box on page 67, as well as Understanding the Free Transform tool on page 68. We've got our hiker ready to go. Make sure that everything is deselected. You can use your control key and click to the side. Lines are still just lines. Outline mode shows you a framework of your artwork with the fill and stroke attributes not visible. So if we go up to View and View Outline, you can see that none of this is joined together. Everything is just straight. Well, these items are straight lines. We do have a circle and the rounded rectangle though. So if we go back to the GPU preview, we are going to click and drag with the Join tool to paint an area over the point where the figure's elbow meets. We want to join these items. So let's get the Join tool, which is under the Pencil tool, which is actually on mine, it's underneath the Shaper tool. So you'll find the Shaper tool, Pencil, Smooth tool, Path, Eraser, and the Join tool. And what we're going to do is join over the point where the figure's elbow meets. So let's go back to Outline View so that you can see this. And all we need to do is drag over that, and the ends will become joined. If we click on a selection tool, you'll see that these are one piece. You can see the bounding box, and it encompasses both pieces. Select that and lock the selection by going to Object, Lock, Selection. So we aren't going to be able to pick that up and change it. Let's go back to the Join tool again and drag over the top endpoints of the lines that make up the legs. We can check that again by clicking on those two lines, and you'll see that bounding box. Let's go back again to GPU preview, and now we're going to see that because we had selected a corner that has a miter joint, we can see that all of a sudden we have this peak going to the top. Make sure that you have one of the lines selected now. Click the round joint option in the stroke panel. We want a round joint, which nicely rounds that joint off for us. Now if we go in and take a look at our layers, expand this out, we will see we have the ellipse for the head, the rectangle for the backpack. We have the line that is the hiking stick. We have one path that is the arm. We have the path for the legs that is all one line. Let's go ahead and unlock the path for the arm. We're going to use what we learned creating the previous icon for the picnic table to finish off our artwork. Remember that our picnic table is locked, so we can't pick it up. Let's go to Select All, which is going to give us the bounding box around our hiker. We can go to Object and we'll group that object. We will select the hiker layer for the template and delete that. We don't need that template anymore. Unlock the background layer. Select both our hiker and shift click to select the rectangle behind. Object, group again, and this is going to give us another parent group. Double click and rename that group hiker. We're going to select that, and object, we're going to lock selection. Okay, save the file and we'll move on.